up the gay Hollywood spotlight from last week. So takes me a while to catch up on these things. So this week, the three films that I hadn't seen of this film's featured were The Seventh Sin from 1957, Sincerely Yours from 1955, and Les Girls, whatever, from 1957. So, starting with The Seventh Sin, this is directed by Ronald Neame, or Neame, Neame. I don't know how to pronounce that, and stars Eleanor Parker and George Sanders. It is an adaptation of W. Somerset Maugham's The Painted Veil. It's one of my favorite books. And I read the book first, and then I saw the 2009 Naomi Watts version, and then I saw the Greta Garbo version, and then now I've seen this version. And I think there's another version that was made maybe in the 40s. Um, let's see, I'll click on this link. But all three versions are not great adaptations. And all three versions, no, I guess there's just these three versions. Okay. All three versions omit the actual ending of the book. So I find that strange. Like all this one, maybe this ending had the closest ending, I think, to kind of the sadness of the ending of the book, whereas the Naomi Watts one is like they add the end of that film is the exact opposite of the end of except that, spoiler alert, the husband dies. But they tack on like this happy ending at the end of that one that like is the exact opposite of what Mon wanted in his story. So that's bizarre. But Eleanor Parker does a really good job of playing the main character. Her name's I believe Kitty in the book, but Carol in this version. And is it Kitty? Yes. So I don't know why her name is Carol in this version. But basically what happens is Carol is a spoiled, selfish debutante, very similar to some of the debutantes you see in Edith Wharton novels, who is playing the marriage game and trying to find her best match. But when her sister gets married, she like flips out and marries the first person who asks, her younger sister. All of that is not in this version of the film, or you don't see it. It's mentioned in passing, but like that's in the book. And you kind of need to know that to understand why she does what she does for the rest of the thing. Like Mon lets the character lets you grow on the character and see her why she does what she does. None of the film versions really, except kind of the 2009 one, let Kitty be less of a like a horrible person at the beginning of the story, which is too bad. But anyways, she is having an affair with a businessman in Hong Kong where she's living with her husband, who is a bacteriologist. Her husband knows about this. He catches them. He says he'll give a divorce if the other guy will divorce his wife and they get married. Obviously, knowing that the other guy was not going to do that because he's a cad. And when that blows up in her face, she goes with him to fight cholera in the mountains, and she thinks they're both going to die. And that's kind of his idea, except in doing that, they fall back in love and realize, well, she falls in love with him for the first time. He falls back in love with his wife. That's why he married her in the first place. And then things end horribly because Somerset Maugham often writes stories where things end horribly once people learn how to love. Because you can learn how to love, but you can't have that cake. That's the Mon way. I recommend reading Mon if you can. This is a decent adaptation. All three are great films. They all are interestingly different in the ways in which they are allowed to tell this story. Clearly, the Garbo one is made in the 30s and gets to be kind of explicit, except it's towards the end of pre-code, and so it's starting to not be as explicit as the story needs to be. This is in 57, and it is straight up like this is an affair happening because they're getting towards the end of the code. And then obviously the Painted Veil came out in 2009, I think. No, 2006. So it like got to be racy. So this is The Seventh Sin. The reason it was featured on Gay Hollywood was its producer was David Lewis, and David Lewis was gay. So I am running out of film time already. Oh, God. The next one was Sincerely Yours. I actually liked this a lot more than I was expecting. It stars Liberace. Liberace is super gay, all right? He is gay. there's a bunch of people apparently in 2017 who still don't know that Liberace was gay, and I'm like, ah. He's like the first gay man that I knew other than Rock Hudson, and so I'm like, how do you not know this? And actually, I remember asking my mom, like, how did people not know that he was gay? And she's like, I don't know. So, Sincerely Yours, he's a pianist who wants to make it big by playing at Carnegie Hall. He finally gets that gig, but he's going blind. No, he's going deaf. You can't be a pianist if you're going deaf. So then at the same time, he meets Dorothy Malone, and they fall in love, but they have no chemistry, and Dorothy Malone is like pure sex. So it's like, And then she meets another guy and starts to sort of flirt with him or whatever, and Liberace's secretary loves him because obviously, and he learns to lip read and like befriends a kid who is a cripple, and decides to risk everything to have surgery to restore his hearing. Now, the plot is preposterous, but I actually think Liberace is a pretty good actor. Like, he's not great. He's not Gregory Peck, but he is pretty good and would probably have gotten better. But I believe this was his only film, partly from the stage fright or a camera fright, I guess. But the scene at the end where he's crying because he's like, spoiler alert, gotten his hearing back was really touching, and he's quite funny, plays off of the characters really well. He does not have sexual chemistry with the women, but and then the piano playing is like, you can see why he was such a huge celebrity. Like, he is an insanely great, talented performer. So I know this is like a cult film, but I think it's legitimately an interesting film, and I would like to propose that 8 Mile is basically this film, only with a rapper instead of a pianist. Watch the two films together. Let me know what you think. But I think I'm right. The next film that I watched was the gayest film I've ever seen. This is George Cukor's Les Girls. Everyone who worked on this film was gay, pretty much. Cole Porter wrote the music. George Cukor directed it. Jack Cole did the choreography, and Ori Kelly did the costumes. It is so gay. There's some scenes, like the very last musical number with Mitzi Gaynor and Gene Kelly is like the gayest thing I've ever seen. It's great. Basically, it's Rashomon set in a Paris review show. So one of the girls writes a book, and one of the other girls sues her for slander. So the girl who wrote the book tells it from her point of view what happened. Then the girl who's suing, and that girl who wrote the book is Kay Kendall, Tanya Elg, who's suing, she tells her side of the story. And then the third section is Gene Kelly coming in and saying what really happened and talking about Mitzi Gaynor. The three of them are great together, Mitzi Gaynor, Kay Kendall, Tanya Elg. Kay Kendall and Tanya Elg won a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical. They tied or won the award together. I'm not really sure quite how that works, or if anyone has ever done that before or since, but interesting. It's the last musical that Gene Kelly did with MGM after almost 20 years of being with them. He's at the top of his game. He's very charming. The sets are so gorgeous, like to die for. Beautiful Technicolor shot by Robert Surtees. It's just gorgeous. I really enjoyed it. It's more of a comedy and less of a musical and more of a dance film, as the Gene Kelly films tend to be. Lots of dancing. For once, I didn't hate a musical, and I think it was because it was most of the songs took place on the show, and so it wasn't just like people singing to each other. It was like these really crazy numbers, and the numbers are really bizarre, and you're like, what? But it really works. Unfortunately, there was one scene, the title sequence, or title song, "Les Girls," has a really horrible blackface use because they want to use like colonial drums or something, so then they have to have these dancers in colonial blackface, and it is really bad. And I'm like, this is 1957. Please stop. So like, if they could not have that, this movie would be perfect. So that was The Seventh Sin, Sincerely Yours, and Les Girls. I recommend all of them for different reasons. I recommend you read all the W. Somerset Maugham. He's a great author. And happy Pride. We've got 2 more Thursdays. 2 more Thursdays. And I probably won't get them all watched in June because the last Thursday is June 29th, and I'm going to be out of town on my vacation. So who knows when I'll catch up on those ones. We'll see. But a bientôt.